Porsche 997 interiors are pretty nice, but at this point in time, they're approaching 20 years old. So I'm going to show you two things you can do in this video to make them look way, way nicer, modernize them, and give them some features and amenities that they never had almost 20 years ago. So I'm going to transform the interior from this to this. The two most used things in the interior, the steering wheel and the radio.
These are two mods that every 997 absolutely needs, and they're DIY friendly. Sort of.
Now that's not to say there aren't any trials or tribulations with this.
My function switch isn't working, high beams aren't working, and none of these buttons work.
This can either be really easy or really complicated depending on your skill level and what options you choose.
The sound quality of this radio is actually really, really good. It's just everything else that sucks. Obviously, the user interface from 2007 isn't great. There's no touchscreen at all. Like, you want to change the radio station and this knob doesn't do it. Frankly, it sucks.
Hopping on AliExpress and searching for Porsche 997 PCCM pluses, you'll get a multitude of results, of course, after being bombarded with pop-ups. So I bought and installed one of these head units, which actually worked out pretty well. The sound was decent, the install was not hard, however the sound quality was lacking, the fit wasn't good, and the color didn't match at all. And it just bothered me.
And like the reviews said, it doesn't really stay there.
Now, unfortunately for me and all the other 997 owners out there, the Porsche PCCM Plus is about 5 times more than the AliExpress unit that I already installed.
It all started back when I installed this. Literally just pulls out.
So I yanked out the AliExpress unit, bought a PCCM Plus, and installed it. However, there was just one problem.
Oh, that's such a better looking fit. Okay, so far no volume. So I've done something wrong.
This time lapse here is actually hours and hours of work, and I got nowhere. Searching the internet, searching Facebook groups, nada. Could not get the volume to function.
Put it. So I got with my service manager. We're going to open a case with Porsche, see if they have any thoughts or see kind of how they want us to proceed from there.
So I did the only thing I could do, take it to the Porsche dealership, where it's been for about 3 weeks. Super disappointing.
Just wanted to give you an update, and ultimately it's not too much of an update, but we're kind of at a brick wall.
Well, almost a month later, I finally have a working PCCM Plus, and I'm super stoked with it. I'll be sure to, well, let you guys know if there's any future failures or problems. But for now, I'm really pleased with it.
So what was actually wrong with this car and how much was the bill? Yes, I did indeed get a bill for this, and I can't necessarily fault the dealership for it. It wasn't really their fault.
I finally got it back. It's finally here. Porsche did fix it, and I'll explain exactly what was wrong with it. And we got some upgrades to do to this. Probably the best or one of the best upgrades I've done to this car yet. So now when I turn the car on, now there's actually sound that comes out of the radio. Can you believe it? Steering wheel controls work. Basically, well, everything works. I'm super pleased with this. Obviously, I have some things to tidy up here, though, as well.
I took it to the Porsche dealership, partially disassembled like this, hoping it would save me some money on some labor costs. Now, whether that did or not, I'm not sure, but I have to get it all back together now, which really isn't a big deal. There's not too many parts left over to install.
I'm going to put these pieces back on instead of the carbon fiber ones, just to see if I like this more, and also because I want to put Redline's phone mount on, and it's only compatible with these, not with the carbon fiber ones.
Let's face it, there's not really anywhere to put a phone in a 997, so this mount takes care of that solution. It goes on with double-sided tape, and it's really easy to do at home.
Test out the new mount. Oh, that's outstanding. And as you can hear, volume and everything works. Fantastic.
PCCM Plus fully installed and working. So let me go over what I was charged for this and what exactly was wrong with it.
So what exactly was wrong with the PCCM Plus that I installed? Let me tell you. I've got everything here from the dealership. Let me go over exactly what was wrong because, well, it's probably exactly what most of you thought it was.
Oh, whoops. How'd that comment get in there?
I took the car to Porsche with the stock radio in it just to show them that everything worked, the amp, the speakers, and everything. And then I gave them the PCCM Plus on the side for them to install with most of the panels already moved so they could just pop it in. So a couple of days go by, I get a call. They say, hey, we can't really figure out what's working. We put the PCCM in, it's not turning on the amp. We're not sure where to go from here. We're gonna open a case with Porsche. They opened a case with Porsche, didn't really figure anything out that way, went through a whole bunch of forums, etc. So they got another PCCM Plus and only swapped over the MOST box, and that got it to work. However, it only worked about once because as soon as they turned the car off and turned it back on, there was no sound again. So ultimately what they figured out was the PCCM Plus was actually frying the MOST box that came with the PCCM Plus. So they installed both new units and Viola. Everything works perfectly, and I had to pay for it. And before I took it to Porsche, I tried to return the old unit, but they won't accept it because it's electronics. And once you open an electronics unit, no one's gonna take it back, so I couldn't really warranty it. The only way I could warranty it was through a Porsche dealership. They put like 10 hours into this. They charged me about half of the time they put into that because they gotta pay their techs. Now it still sucks because it's ultimately Porsche's fault, but it's not this Porsche dealership's fault. So I spent $423 for them to tell me that I did absolutely nothing wrong and it was all Porsche's fault. So it sucks, but it is what it is. I'm not mad at the dealership. It's not their fault. I'm really just mad at Porsche because it's total bullshit. Installing the PCCM Plus is super easy. Almost anyone could do that at home. The only time you can't do it at home is if, well, it's faulty and you need Porsche to warranty it. Now we need to move on to some other upgrades that all these cars need. But let me show you what's next. I'm really excited for it. What this car has needed for a long time is a 991.2 steering wheel, of course. It was always on the plans, but getting this steering wheel from Porsche with everything needed to swap it in is a little on the pricey side. But I've had this stuff laying around here for, well, as long or longer than I've had the PCCM Plus, but it's been at the Porsche dealership. So, gonna do some wiring, gonna do some part swapping, gotta make the interior look a little more modern.
Now, since my factory steering wheel had buttons, I want to retain those, and to do so you need an adapter and you need some other parts, and I got all of them through cyphervehicledesign.com.
Basically, the short of the long is this and this has to be connected in there to make the steering wheel controls work, along with this.
Now, this box that I'm installing is pretty much plug and play, and you can do most of this with simple hand tools. It's just tedious because it's a bunch of small parts in a very small area.
All the wiring is done. That was pretty annoying, I won't lie. Mainly because it's finicky, but you can see the box, the adapter box is up there with the adapter wires they run in there. It gets pinned in up there. That's done. On to the next part of this project. I am working on a new website. It's been delayed, but if you want to get a 997 t-shirt, you can do so at boostedapexdesigns.com.
Obviously, removing the old steering wheel is a requirement, but it's not as simple as swapping the new one on. Now, you could swap on a 991.2 steering wheel without multifunction controls, and it would simply bolt into place, and you wouldn't have to do any wiring at all. But I wanted to retain the factory buttons on the steering wheel so I can control the radio. Now, that means I had to install that little box that I did earlier, but I also have to swap out the factory multifunction support steering control module with one from a 997.2.
Essentially, if you have a manual transmission, and you have a steering wheel without any controls on it at all, the steering wheel simply bolts in. You don't have to do any wiring, no modules, no nothing. It's super simple. Now, the way that I went is a little more complicated, and if you have a PDK and want your paddle shifters, that's more complicated as well. But it is doable. Aha! There we have old, and there we have new. Don't know what the difference is, but the part number is different.
And then that also has to be programmed, and that's where this installation gets a little tricky and a little more complicated and a little more expensive.
Let's throw the wheel on here and see if my radio controls work. I really, really hope they do, because all this stuff is really finicky and it's easy to mess like one thing up. I'm not going to put the airbag in yet because I already have an airbag light, so I got to clear that anyway. I just want to test that this works because I don't want to put the airbag in and then have to deal with getting that back out and doing all that good stuff. But wish me luck that it works.
I was unfamiliar with this process and hoped by just plugging that stuff in that it would work, but that's not the case.
Well, I already have bad news. My function switch isn't working, high beams aren't working, turn signals work, and none of these buttons work.
My name is Just getting closer.
I thought maybe the reason these column switches weren't working is because when I took them apart, they were a little finicky to get back together. That wasn't the case, still didn't work, and the real reason was because I didn't read far enough down on the directions from Cypher Vehicle Design on how to program this thing. So after double checking and reinstalling everything, I was left with the same result. As it turns out, you actually need the Porsche PIWIS system to program this new steering wheel module. Now, one way to do this is to take it to the Porsche dealership, but I didn't want to pay a couple $100s in labor, and honestly, I think I would have really confused the dealership on what I was requesting.
This tablet has the PIWIS system on it. I thought you already had a system like that for your Porsche. It was on your laptop. Yeah, but it's different. So you had to buy another laptop. Yeah, but this does coding. That makes perfect sense, brother. Anyway, you see the application here, and this plugs into a USB that goes to the OBD2 port in the Porsche, and you can do what's called a vehicle handover. You can do a lot more in-depth coding. Basically anything that I would ever want to do with the car electronically, this can do. How much was the PIWIS? I got the tablet with the cable and the charger for $750. How much was the Durametric? I spent about $750 on my Durametric Pro as well. So you spent $1,500 on two different Porsche coding softwares. All right, it does a different type of coding. Okay, I'm not here to judge. Okay, you know what? Just And another alternative to both of these units, if you want to do something simpler and you want to save some money, you can go with this Foxwell unit. Now, is this able to do that vehicle handover and the steering wheel control module reset? No, but this can do a lot of stuff. It's totally wireless, and it can actually do some coding on Porsches as well. And this thing simply wirelessly connects to the car. It's touchscreen. It's honestly just really nice, simple, and easy to use. Here it automatically figured out what kind of car it was. And this can do a ton of things that not every OBD2 scanner can do. Like here we can do an oil reset. And here are just some of the systems you can control and mess with on this Foxwell unit, which is really, really helpful, especially for a budget. So for any of you guys that want to do some coding, doesn't involve like a vehicle handover or really, really specific things like that, I suggest this Foxwell unit because you can do a lot of that stuff without getting an entire laptop and an entire tablet and all of that stuff. Or if you just want to use this for your Chevy Silverado, your Honda Civic, it works really well for that as well. I love that it's handheld and it's wireless, touchscreen, color touchscreen. This is a really nice unit. I'll have a link for this in the description box. You won't be disappointed in it. Now, I got to figure out how to use this new Surface Pro and PIWIS system, which I'm not familiar with at all. But I got to get this thing programmed somehow. So just like before, when I pull this, nothing happens up there. The other switches seem to work though. So I got to do computer things.
I wouldn't say this software is necessarily designed for guys like you and me just to figure out on the fly, so it took me a few hours to figure out the ins and outs of this system. Plus I followed a whole bunch of directions and tutorials online, and eventually I got it.
I honestly can't really believe it, guys. This was way over my noggin when it comes to programming and doing all that kind of stuff. I see I did something. Now the gauge cluster is in kilometers, so I got to fix that. But I can't believe it works. Check it out. All right, so now I got the switch there. And now when I click it, yeah, I still have the airbag light, but that works. And go to tuner. It friggin' works! I can't believe it. And when I turn the lights on, these light up as well. How friggin' sweet is that? I am pumped.
And the final piece.
And that has completely transformed the interior of my 997. It's essentially perfect now. If you'd like to get any of the parts or anything I've used in this video, they'll be linked in the description box.